China. So
Right.
this is geopolitical stuff. And we need our allies in NATO to come alongside and say, how can we work with you, President Trump? We are with you. We understand you are trying to
Mm.
get us in a more safe situation, both the United States and our European allies.
Carla Sands, thank you very much for joining me.
You are not going to believe how quickly this interview falls apart. What starts as a straightforward conversation soon turns into a relentless fact check, as a British journalist repeatedly corners one of Donald Trump's most loyal defenders. Every time she's given a chance to explain, she seems to dig herself even deeper, making claims that leave the interviewer visibly stunned. And by the end of this exchange, you'll understand why so many people are calling this one of the most awkward Trump interviews in recent memory. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now, this debate centers on Donald Trump's controversial push to acquire Greenland, and whether his allies can actually defend that position under serious questioning. Let's watch the full exchange first. Then we'll come back and break down everything that happened, because there is a lot to unpack.
Well, joining me now is Carla Sands, who was the US ambassador to Denmark during President Trump's first term. She is now a key figure in the Trump-supporting America First Policy Institute. Carla Sands, do you know what is going on inside Donald Trump's head when it comes to Greenland?
Well, I certainly don't have a crystal ball to know what goes on in the president's head, but I can imagine that he is working to secure the Arctic, the Western Hemisphere on behalf of the American people and our allies, like those of you in the UK. And I will just say briefly, I really hope that your leadership will do what President Trump is doing for the United States in the UK and make the United Kingdom great again. There's so much opportunity in the UK, but
I
you're
guess it's
struggling in
difficult,
so
yeah.
many ways.
And I guess it's difficult when you're hit with tariffs, but I mean, that's a whole other issue. Isn't what's going on here that Donald Trump's trying to add territory to America? It's empire building, isn't it?
Well, let's just go to tariffs for 1 second. These tariffs are to get a level playing field for American manufacturers and American makers, because Europe and the UK have generally had much higher tariffs on our goods than we had on theirs. So he's actually giving a chance again to American manufacturing to reindustrialize, which we hope the UK will reindustrialize as well. And those
But it could
tariffs have
well,
been,
it could well end
if
up in
I
it.
may,
It
because
could
look
end
at
in
the
an
foreign
economic
direct
war, though,
investment
couldn't it?
of trillions of dollars of new investment coming into the United States and rebuilding our economy after decades of really our middle class suffering, like the UK middle class has been suffering as
Okay,
well.
but we've got the prospect of a trade war here. We've got the prospect of Donald Trump threatening to invade a NATO ally. I mean, is he detached from reality?
He's well grounded in reality, the reality that our friend Denmark, an original NATO member country, will never be able to defend or develop Greenland. It's like owning a house that's too expensive for you. You can't afford to keep it up. You can't afford to take care of it. And people are breaking in. You have to sell it to someone who can afford it. And
But I mean,
that's what's happening here.
Denmark says it's quite able to look after its own backyard, and they should know, and it should be their decision, shouldn't it?
Well, but so I will share with you, they're not being honest with you. When I was the US ambassador, they had about 30 guys in Greenland and 2 dog sleds. And this is the world's largest island, 1/3 the size of the continental US, with not enough knowledge of what's above, on, and below the seas, the giant seas. This is the GI-UK gap. Greenland, Iceland, and the Faroe Islands are really near your Shetland Islands. And Denmark has not a chance. They just don't have the resources. You have to understand, they're not capable of taking care of this asset. They're not capable of developing it on behalf of the Greenlandic people, which have told me to my face, if the US doesn't invest in us, we'll go to China. Money has no color. So they don't have the wisdom to understand what is a safe investment and what is an unsafe investment.
You said you didn't have a crystal ball to know what's going on inside the president's head, which is understandable. But we get a sort of sense, don't we, from this letter he sent to, or text to, the Norwegian Prime Minister, suggesting he's threatening war because he didn't win the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, it's that kind of thing a toddler would say, isn't it?
Well, that's what I think when I see these onesies, twosies, these soldiers that go to Greenland to give the middle finger to President Trump from our NATO allies, countries that send 1 soldier or 5 soldiers. What are they thinking? Why wouldn't they say, how can we work with you, President Trump? And as for the Prime Minister of Denmark, she never picked up the phone and called the president for a whole year. And instead, she went behind his back to try to get help from, heads of state who still aren't capable of defending their own territories.
You know, Donald Trump wanted the Peace Prize. He's clearly very put out that he hasn't got it. So why on earth does he then invite one of the biggest warmongers of this century, President Putin, onto his so-called board of peace? It's madness, isn't it?
Well, I think it's kind of brilliant. I like the idea of bringing together a team. Once you have someone like a Vladimir Putin in the room, he's going to be working with allies instead of hugging up to China. China is an existential threat to absolutely our alliance. It's not Russia. Russia has an economy. I mean, it's like one of our medium-sized states in the United States. They
But
don't have
Belarus, Kazakhstan, I mean, a bunch of
trouble.
autocrats. What have they got to say about peace?
Well, Kazakhstan is coming to the West rather than turning to the East, rather than turning to the Chinese Communist Party. We're now doing energy deals with Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is going to help to supply Europe with energy, not Russia. That's a win. But if you look at what President Trump is trying to achieve in the Western Hemisphere, what he did, the magnificent outcome in Venezuela, and that blocks China from getting, they were getting 65 to 80% of the Venezuelan oil. What he's doing with Iran, Iran is supplying most of the Iranian oil goes at a discount to China.
Right.
So this is geopolitical stuff. And we need our allies in NATO to come alongside and say, how can we work with you, President Trump? We are with you. We understand you are trying to get us in a more safe situation, both the United States and our European allies.
Carla Sands, thank you very much for joining me.
Honestly, every single time Carla Sands appears on British television, she somehow manages to make things even worse for herself. Instead of answering straightforward questions, she repeatedly falls back on the same talking points, dodges the issue, and acts as though simply repeating a claim somehow makes it true. And that's exactly what happened throughout this interview. What really stood out to me was how the journalist kept bringing her back to the original question. Yet every single time, she changed the subject. When she was challenged over Donald Trump's actions, instead of addressing the criticism directly, she pivoted to claiming Europe was playing games by sending troops to Greenland. But that's not really an answer, is it? And let's be clear about something. Those deployments weren't child's play. They were a political signal, a way of showing support for an ally, and making it clear that Greenland's future shouldn't be decided through pressure or intimidation, whether you agree with that strategy or not. Dismissing it as meaningless completely ignores the message it was intended to send. And in the end, the situation never escalated into the dramatic takeover that some people were predicting. Then there's the bigger picture. Carla Sands has defended Donald Trump for years, and this interview felt no different. Even when faced with difficult questions, she never seemed willing to acknowledge any weakness in the argument. Instead, she doubled down, again and again. That's why interviews like this are so interesting. They're not just about one politician. They show how some political figures and their allies react when they're challenged in real time. Instead of engaging with the criticism, they shift the conversation somewhere else and hope nobody notices. But that's just my opinion. Now I want to hear yours. Do you think Carla Sands defended her position convincingly? Or do you think the journalist exposed major flaws in her arguments? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe for more political commentary, and I'll see you in the next one.